Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dave Kittle Show. This is Dave Kittle. I am the physical therapist, one of, and owner of Concierge Pain Relief Home Physical Therapy in New York City, and the CEO of the Fieldmaker Group. We're currently acquiring physical therapy practices in the New York and New Jersey area. And today we have a business broker on the show today, David Cozzocrea. He is the broker and the principal at Southeast Business Advisors. We're going to hear more about him and how you can connect with him if you're interested. First of all, David, welcome on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The Dave and Dave Show.
Dave and Dave, here we go. So we contacted a couple of months ago, maybe 1 or 2 months ago, and we were speaking about your background as a broker, and now you've really been specializing in healthcare. So in order to give the audience of typically therapy practice owners, healthcare business owners as the audience, give them a little bit of background about yourself and why you see healthcare as a good niche that you're focusing in right now.
I've been doing it for 20 years. Basically what I've done is I don't per se specialize in that. I've handled all types of businesses, whether it's manufacturing, trucking, restaurants, of course. I've even had an ice manufacturing plant. I've done medical practices, and a couple of years ago, I decided, let me go ahead. I think I'll focus on healthcare, which I've done, and that's what I've done. But I'm looking at, again, generalization and not just per se healthcare. But there are, there's a lot of buyers out there right now for a lot of businesses, and not just healthcare.
Got it. So if there's a healthcare business owner, maybe a physical therapy practice owner that's out there, you're a broker, so you'll obviously be biased when I ask you this question. Does every owner in healthcare, if they're looking to sell, if they're thinking about selling some or all of their practice, do they need a business broker?
Well, I'm going to say, in my opinion, okay. I mean, you can have I'm going to be non-biased here. Because, you may have a small practice, even though I'm talking with doctors right now, they're doing less than a couple $100,000 in collections. Yeah, they could probably sell it themselves. But here's the thing. Most people don't know how to sell a business. Doctors, again, I'm saying this toward doctors are good at doctoring. But most of them don't know what's going on within their practice a lot of times because they're used to everybody else doing everything for them. In my opinion, it's helpful having a business broker like myself because we handle everything. When we're dealing with buyers, we get NDAs, we want to get a personal financial statement on the buyer. We want to pre-qualify them. Doctors don't have the time to go ahead and sell their business too. They just don't have that time. And a lot of your business owners don't either. And really that's what a business broker does for a business owner and selling the business for them. We take all that away from them. So our job is to go ahead after we've pre-qualified a potential buyer. That's when we put them, both parties together.
Makes sense. And then in regards to the whole process, there's a lot of that front end work that you would be doing. I'm assuming once there's an agreement between you and the business owner, like they sign some type of retainer, whatever your agreement is. First of all, let's touch on that. So I'm a healthcare, I'm a physical therapy practice owner. So if I were reaching out to you, I've never even asked this about the other brokers that I've had on the show, but let's say I want to retain you now. Obviously, I don't want you to say anything about cost or dollars or commission or anything like that, because the audience can reach out to you if they want to find out more about the details. But if I wanted to reach out to you, what does that process look like? Do we have some type of 1 or 2 calls, Zoom calls, in regards to both of us feeling each other out? Maybe as an owner, am I interviewing several brokers, or is it usually like you get referrals and then it goes that way? How does it usually go between a practice owner reaching out to a broker like you? What's that first step or two?
The first step, and if they want to reach out to a couple of different brokers, they can. I'm going to tell you this, and this is my opinion. Most of them regarding like what we call success fees or commissions are everybody's pretty much in line there. Okay. But when it comes to going ahead and first initially having a discussion with a doctor, a practice owner, any business owner, when I get calls and the guy want to sell my business, they really don't know if they want to sell their business or not because they don't even know what they're worth. So the very first step is I'll ask them questions and get familiarized with the practice of the business. And when I say business, because I'm talking about general across the board here, they really don't know if they want to sell or not because they don't know what they're worth. And some of them I've talked to, they have even no idea what their collections are. So by going ahead and having a good discussion with them, I'll always ask them, and it's not, and I'll tell them there's no right or wrong answer. What do you think your business is worth? And many will tell me, Dave, I have no idea. And that's where I can go ahead and help them. And we can talk about recasting and all that in a little bit. But the first thing is to go ahead. A broker would do what's called a broker's opinion of value. And it's just that, it's an opinion of value. We'll go ahead, we'll get the financials, we'll do a recasting, and then basically say, okay, this is what we feel that this business or practice is worth. There's also what's called, and I'm going to go a step further, there's called a certified business appraisal. Now, there's a cost to that, okay? But I have an independent third-party firm that I've used for years, one of the largest in the country, and doing an appraisal right now, that I use because that's a certified business appraisal. And the reason for going ahead and having a certified business appraisal is I tell people, you need to be believable to a buyer. And what I mean by that, the asking price needs to be believable to a buyer because where did you come up with this price? And a buyer's always thinking in their mind, okay, did the broker come up with this? Did the seller come up with this? And if you go, well, yeah, this is what we did, or I doubt you're going to say this is what the seller wants, it's not believable. Because when a buyer gets into their due diligence and they take the numbers, most likely they're going to get in touch with their CPA or they're going to go ahead and hire a CPA to do the due diligence review or maybe even a tax attorney. Either them numbers make sense or they don't. And they're going to go, wait a minute, what are you doing here?
So the first thing, the broker's opinion of value, is that is that also without saying the dollar amount, because they'll have to contact you for that, but is that a paid step, or is that like you just have to ask them questions? It's almost like an initial phone consult type of thing, or do they have to send you financial documents and all that, and then you're kind of building your case to get the opinion of value? But like, do you need financials, or is it just like the first intro call?
That's the only way you can do it. In order to come up with the value of a business, you need to gather the financials. Typically, and just like lenders, they're always going to see the last 3 years financials. When we're doing evaluation, when the appraiser I use, he'll take the last 4 years tax returns, P&Ls, and balance sheets. And then in this case, we're halfway through 2022, they're going to go ahead and ask for at least through June 30th P&L and balance sheets.
Yeah, year to date. Got it.
Yeah, but I always joke with people, but it's true. When it comes to selling a business, it's about numbers. It's not about, oh, I love the paint and look at the cabinets.
Got it. So then what's the difference between, again, just for the audience of healthcare practice owners, therapy owners, what's the difference between the broker's opinion of value and then the certified business appraisal? Do you and your firm do certified business appraisal, or is that independent of you guys and that's another party?
It's independent. The difference is, one of the big differences is, again, a broker's opinion of value will not stand up in court if there's any possibility of that happening. Whereas a certified business appraisal, independent third-party business appraisal will. The other thing is the appraiser that I use, he'll go ahead and value the practice or the business 6+ different ways. Whereas, most cases we're doing seller's discretionary cash flow, SDC, maybe go ahead and look at EBITDA. But the other thing is you're talking about a good 100-page report versus opinion of value, which could be, just the broker's going ahead, he's gathering up financials, jotting down some numbers and putting it together and say, okay, based on comp, based on what I'm looking at, based on the cash flow, this is what I feel that the practice or the business is worth between this range and this range. And the other thing that the business appraisal will do is they'll go ahead and they'll even recast out like a couple years, what projection is what I should say. So, and the big thing is it's more believable to a buyer. And because in most cases, without having, and this is fact, without having a certified business appraiser, you can lose anywhere between 10 to 30% right off the bat because the buyer really doesn't know where this this number's coming from. And like I tell people, you spent blood, sweat, and tears building this business or building this practice. It's not the time to go ahead and be afraid to put a little money into it. And I will say this, because the company I used them for years, they do give me a better fee for my clients versus somebody just potentially calling out of the blue. Because I mean, business appraisals, you can be anywhere from 10, 20, I've even heard some 30 and 35,000, which to me is, kind of crazy, but each their own.
So that the certified business appraisal, is that done by a different brokerage, or what firms specialize that? Is it law firms or
no,
an appraisal?
It's done by appraisal firm.
And that's all they do. They specialize in that.
All they do. They have all the credentials. And that's the other thing too. They have the credentials, of course, to back them up. They also, if there's need, not that saying that there's a need for any testimony, but again, if something were to like a good example, a divorce, you've got one party that wants it high and you got the other party who wants the price low. And that's where your certified business appraisal comes into play, because if they go to court with that, and it's just an opinion of value, the judge is just going to throw that out. Matter of fact, most likely they're going to request, we need to have the business certified appraised.
I have heard recently of practices that are owned by multiple healthcare providers, and maybe one wants to cash out, move away, whatever. And that makes a really smart sense of getting that entity appraised, because then that individual would know how much either they have to be bought out by, or the partners know how much it would be worth, right?
Exactly. And there's a good example you're giving there too. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for going ahead and having a business appraised. Like I said, it could be, again, just a sale. It could be a divorce. It could be buying out a partner. There's many reasons.
If it
sell for many reasons, as we know.
Say that again.
And people sell for many reasons too. It's not always just retirement.
Right.
I mean,
they want to.
Doctors that contact me that I hear that they're going, I'm just burned out, Dave. Oh, okay. How old are you? I'm 58. So, they're not all. I had one a couple of years ago. She was like 48 years old. She says, I just want to go garden. I'm tired of doctoring. And she was just burned out.
There's definitely a lot of healthcare practice owners that we've spoken with that are burnout or have headaches with the administrative side of things, right? The billing, the admin, the front desk, the hiring, the firing, the HR, the revenue cycle management, collections. Exactly. So let's go back to the certified business appraisal. As a practice owner, let's say it's a physician or a physical therapist that owns 100% of their practice and they're looking to sell 75% of it or 100% of it. They go and get their business appraised, but at the end of the day, also like that, then you send the information to a potential buyer group like us, but then it's still a negotiation. So what would be the incentive for that practice owner to go pay 10 grand, 20 grand, 35 grand, whatever you just said about the certified business appraisal, when they're going to get
I'm able to get my clients a little better deal. So.
Okay, so even if it's 2 grand to 10 grand, let's just say.
But I understand what you're saying. Go ahead, finish your question.
Why would a practice owner pay for a certified business appraisal if they want to sell? They want to sell majority or even 100% of it. Maybe they have staff in place, everything's turnkey, everything's in place, but they're looking to exit. They're going to move away. They want to travel more. They want to start the next chapter of their life, whatever it is. If they're going to pay for that, that's one thing. But then they have you as well in their corner to help with negotiations. And then you guys present this information to a buyer group like us and usually multiple buyers. And then there's going to be a negotiation on that asking price anyway. So how would the business appraisal, that is a paid step for an owner, what's the incentive for them to have that if they're looking to just sell most or all of their practice?
Number one word, believability. Okay. You have to be believable to a buyer. And I understand what you're asking, but here's the other thing. A business that goes ahead and has a certified business appraisal where you have it's about that thick. Everyone that I've done and I've even advertised that way, business has been independently third party appraised for the asking price. More believable. That's saying I didn't put the price on it. The seller didn't put the price on it. This is what it's worth. And every one of them will ask me, can I get a copy of that? Sure, as long as the seller doesn't have a problem. And the other thing is, by having that done, there's not usually that much negotiation because we know what we're worth. It said we're worth $1 million. We know we're worth $1 million. The seller knows he's worth $1 million, and now the buyer knows he's worth $1 million. And usually you're going to see very little negotiation, whereas you could have, and it happens, and that's where that 10 to 30%, by not having that done, you get these crazy offers that someone says, oh, let's just offer them $700,000. Let's just offer $650,000. And then, that's where your negotiation is. But it's more believable, and it really comes down to that one word, believability.
Got it. So, and maybe I'll have to ask you for a referral. Maybe we interview some of these independent business appraisers in the future. Maybe we'll see. For those individuals, if they're appraising the financials of the practice, right? So, are they looking just at the financials only? Are they looking for the unencumbered free cash flow? Do they also take into account like number of staff and all of that? Like, because, and also like, do they use certain EBITDA multiples? And then maybe it depends on how much net profit at the end of the year. Do they use, 3x EBITDA? Do they use 2? Do they use 5x EBITDA? Like, do they come up with that type of thinking with an appraisal?
That's their expertise. That's exactly what they do all day long. The thing is, not just financials, because they have a questionnaire that they have to go through. There's different questions. I mean, how much does it cost to have a manager to run this place? So they have to figure different equations in there.
Got it.
And we do too. And again, a good business broker is going to go ahead, and we have things that we know that we have to go ahead and do, because you can have a business owner, they own a property, but they don't pay themselves a rent. Well, they're not going to sell, even though they may not pay themselves the rent. Say they're going to sell, but they're going to rent the building. Well, the new owner has a rent that they're going to have to pay. So you have to figure in a fair market rent there. And then say a fair market rent's $3,000, but the doctor's only paying himself $1,000. So you have to go ahead and adjust that cash flow accordingly. And then sometimes I've had the opposite where, Dave, we're going ahead and we pay ourselves $3,000. But really the fair market rent here is, $2,000.
Right. So that kind of goes into add backs and adjustments.
Adjustments. And that's just like we go ahead and do that. That's what your, appraiser will go ahead and do. The thing is they're using more methods of going ahead and appraising. There could be 6+ methods that they go ahead and use. But it all comes down, like I said, I'm not beat a dead horse here, but it all comes down to believability. And the more believable you are, just like when you go to court, the more believable you are, the better chance you're going to go ahead and win.
Got it. So at what point do you package this information up and create as many brokers do, the confidential information memorandum, the CIM, the CIM? Is that the next step after an appraisal, or are there other steps in between there?
Once we go ahead and we get that evaluation of the appraisal, that's when I have another discussion with the owner and say, okay, here's what we have. This is what we're looking at. At that point, now they know if they want to sell or not, because you have some that are pleasantly surprised and you have someone that are not so pleasantly surprised. So once we get that back, we know what we're worth, and we'll go ahead and put together our agreement. At that point, I'll go ahead and I package up the business, what I call an offering memorandum. It's a good 10 pages, includes pictures. It includes a snapshot of the financials showing the recasting, enough to give a buyer enough information that after they review it and see it, they'll go, yeah, let's go ahead and set up a call or set up a meeting with the seller to speak to them.
So before the offering memorandum, you mentioned that some of the owners would be surprised. And how does that go? Because some of them will say, well, my practice is, generating $1 million. Why is this business appraisal saying that it would be worth 750 grand? So some of these owners some of these owners will then not sell or choose to continue to build the business maybe, or maybe sell in the future. How do you engage in those conversations? Like, how does that go?
And that's another reason for having a business appraiser, because you need to know where you're at. Honestly, I don't have that too much with people. I mean, it comes back, and like I tell sellers, it is what it is. I mean, numbers don't lie, but it is what it is. And you need to know where you're at. And that's the problem. Like when I tell business owners, or like when I say they don't know if they want to sell or not because they don't know what they're worth. So, I mean, does it come back and they go, ooh, that's nice? Or does it come back and they go, like you said, only 700,000. Now we need to go ahead and see about doing something different, because you have some businesses and you can't value them that way. I mean, if they're taking cash out of it, and we all want the financials, or I should say the tax returns to not look good because we don't want to pay taxes. It's understood. But if you got Hip National Bank going on, and people do it, then you can't go ahead and value a business that way. So at that point, that's when I have a good talk with the seller and say, you need to do things differently. If you want to you reap the rewards as you have, and that you may not reap them now if you haven't been, if you've been making your numbers look bad, okay? If you want to go ahead and reap the rewards when you sell, then you're going to have to start doing things differently. And that's one, we need to turn around to make it look as profitable as you can. And most sellers know that, because I've had to, and they'll say, yeah, I can see I need to do that. Or they'll say, no, I'm fine, at this point, if it's 700,000, I'm fine with that. Let's go with it. It just depends on the seller. A lot of doctors I talk with, they've done well. They've had great practices. They've made money for years. It's not their retirement, as it is when I talk with some business owners. You can have a mom and pop or what have you, that they've built this and spent blood, sweat, and tears. The children don't want to take it over, and this is their retirement. So,
got it. So going back to the offering memorandum, so you help the practice owner create that, and that's going to have the asking price. It's also going to have a lot of verbiage and financials in it that is probably from the appraisal, and kind of say that again.
I create it. I don't help them do. I create it.
You create it. You create the offering memorandum. It's got the asking price. It has financials and verbiage that kind of substantiate the asking price, right?
Yeah, because really what we're doing is I'm just pulling it from the appraisal and putting it in there. We'll have pictures in there. We'll have different categories like competition, how could you grow this business, history.
Right. And how long does that typically take you? Is that days, weeks, hours?
Usually a couple of days. Usually a couple of days. It depends on how much information. And first thing I do is I'll get in touch with the seller, and I'll give them a form to fill out to give me an idea. And I tell them, the more information you're able to give me, the best way to look at the offering memorandum, like when I tell a seller, what would you want a seller to know? That's it. So give me that information, and I'll package it all up, put it into the offering memorandum. The only time they get the offering memorandum, meaning the potential buyer, is again after we signed an NDA. And in my office, not offices do this, not all of them, they'll look for proof of funds, POF. So I'll go ahead and you get some buyers, and they can be kind of skittish. You can get some large pegs, private equity groups that don't want to do that. But I'll even tell them, hey, give me a couple numbers. I promised the seller I would get this. And if I tell someone I'm going to do something, I'm going to go ahead and do it. If they don't want to go ahead and give you what you need, sorry, I'm just not going to disclose it, because there are some people that they only want to know who's for sale. And you can't take that chance jeopardizing confidentiality, because in most cases, business brokerage, and the reason why you hire a business broker, which goes back to your question, the big thing is confidentiality, so that everybody doesn't know you're for sale, because you don't want your clients, your customers, your competitors to know.
And also,
talking about,
or the patients or the staff, right?
Exactly.
because the staff might get a little uneasy, feel like, they might lose their job or something might happen. There might be changes, and they're not, not many people like change.
Exactly, because you're afraid they might not leave, and now you got a staff to replace.
Right.
Or if you're talking about a practice and you got other doctors, they could get skittish, and your mid-level start leaving. And
so what's the next step? You complete the offering memorandum for that owner. The owner does the owner have a final review? You publish it, you agree on it. Then what's the next step? So you have
start marketing. At that point, we have the day of the paper's gone, as we know, so everything's internet. Okay, there's top sites out there. A lot of your listeners may know them, the Biz Buy Sell, businessesforsale.com, businessbroker.net. And that's where your buyers are coming from. I'd say I'm here in Florida, a good 50% of my buyers are coming from out of state.
Is that typically when an outside buyer is looking to get in a new state or a new region?
It could be. I mean, I just had a good example. I had a doctor from California. He has 41 practices that he ended up buying. 41. 3 of them were in Arizona, I think it was. And he wanted to get a foothold here in Florida. So I ended up going ahead and buying. It was real small practice in Jacksonville, but that was going to be the stepping stone to go ahead and with Florida here. Long story short, the type of practice they're looking for and they're into, and I don't mind sharing, it's pain management. I ended up going ahead and was able to put together a bigger deal, which we just closed on in May, which included 3 locations and considerably a lot more collections. So it worked out that his buying a small practice just to get started in the state, and now go ahead and blossom from there.
And without mentioning the practice name, how did that pain management group or the group of physicians find out about you, or vice versa, in regards to that opportunity and that you're talking about?
I reached out. I'll go ahead, and I have something that I use when it comes to reaching out to doctors, where I can go ahead and email them. So I go ahead and do that, and then they can go ahead and get back in contact with me. Mainly, it's a simple email that I put together. Hey, businesses are, like right now, businesses are selling for the highest prices ever. If you own a practice, have you ever thought about selling? If so, give me a call, contact me.
So this is your cold email to doctors, outbound.
Unless they're referred to me. I mean, of course, I have referrals.
Sure.
But if it's just a cold, like this one in this particular, like I said, in this particular case here, we made that connection from an email that I did. And I've been working with this doctor for a few years now. So, and that's the thing with practices. Well, and this is helpful information. The average length of time for a business to sell, and I'm talking about business, doesn't matter practice, whatever it is 9 to 12 months. Do some sell faster than that? Absolutely. Do some take longer than that? Yes, they do. And usually the ones that take longer than that, they're overpriced.
I heard a stat, and you can let me know if you agree with it or not. The stat was something like 70, 80, maybe even 90% of businesses that go on the market. Now, I'm not talking about just healthcare, like any businesses for sale in the US. 70, 80, maybe up to 90% of businesses that are for sale or go on the market never get sold. Is that something that you've heard of?
I knew you were going to say that. It's up there. It's up there.
And so the number one thing that you just mentioned, I'm assuming, is because that they're overvalued. Is that it? Or other reasons?
And that's, like I said, a lot of them, because what I did, and I'm going to share this, I did years ago, I would not, and I'll stress again, I would not take any business to market without having the independent third-party business appraisal. Why? Because of believability. And you know what? I was selling 70 to 80% of all my businesses that I took to market.
Now, when you've said the word believability several times, and it makes a lot of sense, not just for us, the potential buyer side, but also believability for your client, the seller, because then they can't say to you, oh, let's let's add 20-30% on top of this, potential asking price, whatever the appraisal says.
Your fee in there, Dave.
Say that again?
Which they'll tell me as the broker. And a lot of, well, even today, some people, but a lot of your new brokers, it's like, just get the listing. So you have a listing and throw it up there and see what happens. But what happens is, you could have a business where the seller's going ahead and dictating, Dave, I want $1 million in my pocket. So for me to put 1 million, if I don't get that, I'm not going to sell it. So you need to go ahead and put your fee in there, Dave, and you need to go ahead and figure some wiggle room. So now you could be up to $1.2 million, $1.3 million, maybe more, because the seller's going, I'm not going to sell unless I get this. When you have that independent third-party business appraisal, we know what will work. And you can go ahead and do that, because now if you say, well, it's $1 million, but you, Mr. Seller, you're telling me you want me to market for $1.3 million. Now you can't even show the business appraisal. So why did we do it?
I'm assuming brokers don't usually, or clients don't want the potential buyers ever to see the independent business appraisal. Does that ever happen? Or do buyers ever ask for it and you guys say no? Or?
Never say no. I believe me. That's what I mentioned earlier. I want them to know that it was, and I advertise that way. I want them to know that this was independently third-party appraised. I didn't put the price on it. The seller didn't put the price on it. And the very first question every buyer will ask me is, can I see it? Can I get a copy of it? Sure, no problem. Because the first thing they're going to do, they're going to take it to their accountant. Great, wonderful.
Meaning the client is going to take it to their personal accountant?
Correct.
Why? Just for confirmation? Why do they do that?
Well, because a lot of buyers, they want to go ahead and make sure they're doing their due diligence, because they don't want to buy a business and go, oh, I never, I should have had someone else look at this, or I had my own accountant or my attorney and I didn't use them on this, because they don't want to get egg on their face if they buy a business and it doesn't pan out. Then they're going to go, oh, I didn't have. Well, didn't you do due diligence? Did your CPA look at? Well, I didn't do that.
Oh, of course we will. The buyer side. I thought you meant the owner. The sell side is. I thought you said the owner is taking it to their account. Of course. Right. Got it. That makes a lot of sense. I think this is a great place to pause. I would love to have you back on the show in the future, David. What's a good place for anyone in the audience that owns a healthcare practice, physical therapy practice, they're a healthcare business owner? If they want to reach out to you, whether it's on LinkedIn, email address, what's a good place for someone to connect with you and learn a little bit more?
I am on LinkedIn, and you'll see Dave Cozzocrea. The spelling of my last name is C-O-Z-Z, two Z's, O-C-R-E-A, Cozzocrea. Or you can go ahead, by all means, you can email me at Southeast, and it's all spelled out, Southeast Business Advisors with an S, southeastbusinessadvisors@gmail.com.
Excellent.
I don't know if you want my number. I don't mind that either if you want.
If you want to put it out there, sure.
If you want to call me direct, 850-566-6466. Again, 850-566-6466. Please, if you do, because people with text, I have no clue who they are and they never say who they are. So if you do, please give me your name and give me an idea why you're texting me.
And I don't get anything out of this, but let David know if you reach out to him, let him know that you heard about him through the show, through the Dave Kittle Show. I don't get any commission or cut or anything, but if you hear about David through this and you guys connect, that's great. That's why we're putting information out like this. So, David, I would love to have you back on in the future. We'll maybe dissect really, specific points. Maybe we can go more into EBITDA and adjusted EBITDA, add backs. There's a lot of other things that business brokers like you are very specialized in explaining and making it simple for the healthcare business owner. So I would love to have you back in the future. You gave us your contact information, connect with you on LinkedIn. Any final comments, questions, thoughts, anything like that in regards to either the audience or any suggestions or any ways for a therapy practice owner, healthcare business owner to best navigate this big potential transaction of their life?
Not really. I appreciate having me on. The biggest thing is I hope this was informative to your listeners. By all means, feel free to give me a call. I don't charge to go ahead and talk. I'm not an attorney. But the big thing is you need to plan. And a lot of people, it's easier said than done, but most of us do not plan. Nobody would have ever planned on a COVID. Nobody would have ever planned on a 9/11. And when you can have, and this is fact, you can have one bad year, and that will affect the value of your business by 25% at least. So
wow.
you need
All right.
to go ahead and plan, because a lot of businesses, a lot of practices, maybe a little different, but you don't have children that want to go ahead and take it over. So you need to go ahead and have some type of exit strategy in place. And really, they tell you the best time to have the exit strategy is when you first buy the business. That's when your exit strategy should start.
Got it. Excellent, David. Thank you so much. Go ahead and reach out to David at southeastbusinessadvisors@gmail.com. Like I said, I don't get anything of it. I don't get anything for it, but check in with him. And it's, do you usually have clients, like you said, we kind of touched on it. Maybe they make the rounds and they speak to different brokers and they kind of see who would be the best to work with, unless there's a referral. But is that usually advisable, or how do you usually advise that?
It can, but usually when they talk to me, they're done.
Got it. There you go. We'll leave it at that. Excellent, David. Thank you so much. Hey, it's Dave Kittle. Are you a healthcare business owner or physical therapy practice owner who is looking to figure out your succession plan or exit strategy? We might be able to help. And in fact, we may be interested in acquiring your practice. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. Shoot me an email at dave@conciergepainrelief.com. That's DAVE@CONCIERGE painrelief.com. Or you can call me at any time, 646-781-8884.